Hey guys, this week I am excited to bring you a brand new series because I've been asked quite a few times, once I create this beautiful artwork on Procreate, then what do I do with it? I don't want it to just live on Procreate or on my iPad for forever. So this new series is going to focus on creating that beautiful Procreate artwork, but then bringing it offline and printing it at home. So I'm going to show you how I do test prints, how I set up my file, how I get it all printed, how I put it together. So this week we're going to focus on creating that beautiful artwork and getting it formatted properly. And then next week I'm going to take you through all the steps that I follow to print my artwork at home. I'm so excited for this series and I hope you are too. So let's jump into our very first episode where we're going to be creating a fall wreath greeting card. We're going to start by using a 4" by 6" canvas because our card, once it's folded, is going to end up being 4 by 6. So in order to create the exact same canvas, I'll just give you my canvas information right here. I've got, you can see right here, 4" by 6", 300 DPI, and I am using the Display P3 color profile. I get more saturated colors, which makes my artwork stand out that much more. So that is my recommendation for very not high-tech printer scanner combo. And I will leave a link to my printer in the video description, but we're going to get into more about that next week. All right, that's it. That's all I've got right here. So 4 by 6, 300 DPI, Display P3, and then you're all set. I'm giving you the brush that we're using this week for free, and I built it using my Bouquet Maker brush set. If you would like to explore creating similar styles, everything is included in this brush set. So I made you this partial wreath brush. I'm just going to double tap where black is, take a true black, and I'm just going to stamp it in. And you just want a size that's going to fill this out relatively well, and if you need to rotate it a little bit, that's fine too. What we're essentially going to do is paint this all in, create a duplicate, flip it vertically, and then flip it horizontally so it looks a little more interesting, and then we'll put our lettering or our typable text right in between. So we're just going to start out with the bottom one first, but you want to make sure that it's fitting pretty comfortable in here, and this feels like a good size to me, so I'm just going to leave that as it is. I have my Extra Blankets color palette loaded in already. I gave this away last week, so I'll leave a link in the video description to this as well. Stamps free, color palettes free. I'm going to be using my Messy watercolor brush set for this, but you can use any brushes that you'd like. It's just going to work a little bit differently depending on what style of brushes you choose. So for all the painting in this one, I'm going to be using my Tuesday water brush, and we're also going to use the Bloom and Bleed brush for smudging, and then we'll use the sketching pencil brush a little bit too. So those are our main brushes that we'll be using for this. I've got my Tuesday water brush selected, and I'm going to paint in the flower element first. So I'm going to grab my lightest pink color. Make sure you create a brand new layer because we put our stamp on this layer. I can even label this one stamp so I don't forget. Create a brand new layer, and now with the Tuesday water brush we're going to paint each petal individually. So I'm going to keep my stylus on the screen until the entire petal is painted in. Because these are watercolor brushes, they behave very similar to traditional watercolor, where if I lift my stylus up and then I paint again, it's going to behave as if it is wet on dry. So you're going to get that extra density in color. So just be aware of that if you're using the same brushes. So I'm just going to come around and paint each one of these petals in one stroke. Once you have your petals all painted in, we're going to add just a little bit of shading. So in order to do that, create a brand new layer, change the blend mode to multiply, and then apply a clipping mask. So whatever we paint on this layer is going to be locked into these petals, which will also take on the same transparency and texture as the layer beneath it. So tap on layer thumbnail and choose clipping mask, and we're going to switch our color to the orange color. And because the brush has a natural transparency to it, I can still see my outline through it. And what you want to do is locate areas where the petals are overlapping. So this petal is overlapping this petal, so I'm naturally going to get a bit of a shadow right here. So I'm just going to put a line in here. And this one is also overlapping, so I'm going to add just a little bit of shading here. This one's overlapping, and you can choose how much color to add here for each of these, and I always put like a little bit at the base too, where it's kind of folding into the stamen. Now we're going to blend these two colors together nicely as if it's wet on wet. So we're going to grab our smudge brush and choose the Bloom and Bleed, and I'm just going to pull this color and push it around. I don't want this hard line to appear. I don't mind the hard line on this side because it's defining a shadow, but I want the shadow to get softer as it goes away from the edge. So I'm just using the smudge brush for this. Mine's a little bit large. I'm going to come down to about 10% for the brush size. And just pulling the color, and if it gets too heavy, you can always push the color back, and that will reduce the intensity as well. Don't forget about the little areas that you drew at the base, just kind of softening everything. All right, if we turn off our outline, you can see how that's starting to come together, and you can fix any areas that need attention. And then the last thing I want to do, just to add a little bit more character to these petals so they don't feel quite so flat, is I'm just going to grab my brush. It's the Tuesday Water Brush, and you can reduce the size of this too. And I'm just going to put in very subtle folds within the petals. This is totally optional. You definitely don't have to do this, but I like that it gives the main hero element of our wreath a little bit more personality. And then I'm just going to come through with a smudge brush and then soften them up so they're not hard lines. They're just little areas that have a bit of color variation, just really soft color variation. We can turn our outline back on now. Now we're going to take care of the stamen. So the first thing we're going to do is create a brand new layer, change the color to the darkest red color. We're just going to paint in right in the center. And then we're going to make sure that we don't have this hard edge. So I'm going to grab my smudge brush again and just push the color out into the petals to soften this up. If you want to preview it at any time, just turn off your stamp layer. And I like the coverage that I'm getting there, so I'm going to create a brand new layer. I still have my darkest color selected, this maroon color. And I've got my Tuesday Water Brush, but I'm going to reduce the size a little bit more. I'm going to come down to about 6%. And I'm going to paint in the anthers. So you can follow the sketch exactly or the stamp exactly. You definitely don't have to. You can just kind of sporadically put dots wherever you want to, or you can make them larger or smaller. Totally up to you. Definitely feel free to change this up however you would like. All right, now I'm going to draw in the filaments. The filaments are the lines that connect the anthers to the base of the stamen. So I'm going to create a brand new layer right beneath the anthers. I still have that maroon color, but now I'm going to switch to the sketching pencil, and my brush size for this is about 3%, and I'm just going to draw in these lines. If it's getting kind of hard to see, sometimes I'll just turn the stamp off and connect them freehand because they all need to come down to the base, so you can do that as well. And I want these to stand out just a little bit more than they currently are, so I'm just going to duplicate my filament layer and reduce the opacity of this one to about 50%. So it's a little darker, but not a crazy amount. And now you can see it a little bit better from far away. So that completes the flower. So I'm going to group all these layers together, excluding the stamp, and we'll label this one flower. Turn the stamp back on. Now we're going to add in all of our foliage elements, and all of these elements are behind the flower. So in your layers palette, just make sure that you're putting all your brand new layers underneath this new flower group that we just created. So I'm going to tap on the stamp layer, create a brand new layer. I'm going to change to the blue color and switch back to the Tuesday Water Brush. You can really choose any elements that you would like to color however you would like, but these are the ones that I'm going to do. So this larger leaf right here, and once again I'm going to do the exact same thing I was doing before. I'm going to increase the brush size first though. I'm going to paint in one full stroke. I don't really like going behind the petals because the petals are such a light color and there's transparency that you'll see whatever I paint behind them, so I'm pretty careful when I'm getting close to the edges of the flower. Let's also do this element. If the stamp is a little too dark, which I feel like it is right now for me, I'm just going to reduce the opacity a little bit so I can see what I'm painting a little bit easier. I think that's good for my blue elements. Now I want to add a little extra shading to them. So I'm going to create a brand new layer, apply a clipping mask, change the blend mode to multiply. I'm still going to use the blue. That's why I'm changing the blend mode to multiply. I just need it to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to come in close and focus on the areas where the element will be in shadow and just add a little shading. This is totally optional. I just think it adds a little bit more depth to it that I really like. And then go in with your smudge brush, the Bloom and Bleed, and just soften up those edges. Make that transition a little more gradual. Next, we're going to add in a softer green. So these are our blue layers. I'm going to come back to the stamp layer, create a brand new layer. I'm going to choose the softest green color right here. And we're going to keep going just like we have been. So because I put this layer underneath the blue layers, I'm looking for elements that are going to be behind the blue elements that I just painted in. So when I'm looking at this, like this element's going to be behind the blue, so this is fair game. So I'll paint this one in the lighter green. This one is also behind, so I'm going to do the same thing here. You'll notice that this element was originally intended to be in front of the blue, so if I wanted to, I could erase away this part of the blue, or I could leave this overlap, which I also think is really pretty since it is the watercolor aesthetic. It's totally personal choice right there. This one's going to be in front of the blue, so I can't paint this one, but I can paint these ones right here. We can add a little bit of shading to these areas. So I'm going to create a brand new layer, change the blend mode to multiply, apply a clipping mask, and I actually want to try the darker green instead of the light green for this, so it's a little more obvious. Since this color is sitting behind a lot of elements, I have more opportunities to show off depth, and it'll just make those areas more pronounced. All right, now I'll smudge them just like we've been doing. Okay, let's add in the dark green now. So I'm going to create a brand new layer above the blue because we talked about how this leaf is above the blue area. So I need to come up here right beneath the flower group, create a brand new layer. This one's going to be this dark green color. I want a few dark red elements just to hit home that idea that this is a fall wreath. Let's see, I'm going to do this one red and this one red. So everything that's remaining, so like this one, and this one will be dark green. And then the berry stems I'm going to make dark green as well. That is my plan. Coming in here for the berry stem, you can either use the Tuesday water brush or the sketching pencil for the berry stems. Either one will work really well. I have a 2-berry stem here. You probably noticed that I painted over this one. When it comes to small elements and really tight areas, I leave that white space and then I fill it in. It just doesn't feel right and it starts calling attention to itself when I don't want too much attention going there. So I found it actually works best if it's even a little bit more muted. If you have to paint on top of an existing color, that's worked better for me. So that's why I painted over that area, in case you were wondering. Now let's just add in those berries as long as we've got them. I'm going to create a brand new layer. I don't think I'm going to add shading to those elements because they're already super dark and I've got another idea that I want to add detail in with. So I'm going to leave off the shading for the dark green leaves. Let's grab the orange color for the berries. And we can add a little shading to the berries just to give them a little bit of roundness. So apply clipping mask, change your blend mode to multiply. If you wanted to add in some highlights, you could do that too. I'm just going to add shadow for the sake of time and then blend them out. Let's add in our areas of red now. These ones are going to go behind, it looks like they're going to go in front of the light green, but behind everything else. So my light green layer is right here. So it's going to go right above that. And I'm going to grab my dark red and just paint these in. Okay, let's turn off the stamp and see if we've got any gaps we need to take care of. I'm going to fix this one a little bit here. And then I've got this edge right here that could be cleaned up. So this one's on this blue layer. I can just push the color down a little bit. We've got our wreath in a really good place, but you can see that we've got some areas that seem really, really flat, especially like I'm looking at this leaf right here and this one. Our larger elements are calling a lot of attention to themselves and not in a good way. So a really easy way to push them further back is actually defining them with some subtle details. So I'm going to add in some really basic subtle details into the leaves. So because this one's blue, I'm going to come right above the clipping mask layer and change the blend mode to multiply. I'm going to stick with the water brush for this one, for the large ones. And I'm just going to add in some veining here. I do want to make sure that I've got my blue selected since I'm going on top of blue here, just to line up, and then some lines on the side. All right, we can do the same thing for this one over here. And then for elements like this one, you can either put like a little line at the base if you wanted to. You could draw a line all the way up, which I kind of like. I'm going to do that. It's up to you how many of these. The smaller elements, I don't tend to put many details in. It's the larger ones that I don't want distracting from my main flower element. If you'd like to learn more about creating watercolor artwork on your iPad, I have an entire course called Messy Watercolors in Procreate. I'll leave a link on screen and in the video description. Let's take care of the green ones now. So I need to find my dark green layer, which is right here, create a brand new layer, change the blend mode to multiply, grab your dark green, and we'll do something similar here. If it's feeling too dark, which I definitely feel like this one's too dark, actually it's not bad far away. You can always reduce the opacity a little bit to push it back a little. So I'm coming down to 70% on that one. And I'm going to leave the other little ones alone. I do want to take care of this one, but this one's the lighter green. So I can create a brand new layer, change the blend mode to multiply, change to the light green, do the same thing again. That completes the wreath illustration, so let's group everything we've done together, except for your stamp. And I'll label this one bottom wreath. We're going to duplicate it. We can label this one top wreath. We're going to select it, flip it vertically, flip it horizontally, and then make sure your snapping magnetics snapping are turned on. This will move it perfectly straight as you go up. And perfectly straight isn't working so good right here because of the angle that I brought it in at, which is totally fine. But you'll want to make sure that snapping is turned off so you can move it this way without it giving you too much trouble. So that feels good right here. And I'm just looking at how it fills the card because this will be the front of the card. So now I can add in my lettering right into the middle. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to change to my dark maroon color. I'm going to use my Tuesday water brush. If you go to your wrench canvas, you can toggle on drawing guide, and I just like having a straight line because I tend to write uphill quite a bit. So you can write whatever message you'd like right in the middle, or you can use typable text if you'd like, and you can do that by just hitting the wrench, add category, add text. And I've got a video on how to do that if you haven't done it before. Now that this artwork is complete, it's all ready to export to set up as a printable file and to do test prints with. So make sure you turn on notifications on my channel and you'll be notified as soon as that video gets published next week. And I'll take you through all the steps to be able to hold this design right in your hands. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you next time.